Alrighty, we are recording. Welcome in, everybody, and welcome back to another installment of the Frogs at War podcast. My name is Ryan Bennell, and alongside me is my co-host, Anthony North. We're very excited to get this episode going. We've been waiting a couple weeks to get through this topic, if you will. We got a 2021-2022 athletics wrap-up coming at you with football, basketball, baseball, every other sport on there. We're going to kind of do a short little recap of the high and low points from their season and kind of tie it all together with just the overall outlook of TCU sports going into next year, as well as some fun superlatives from freshman of the year, locker room MVP, most improved, kind of whatever you could think of. Anthony and I have awarded some fake superlatives to the Horned Frog athletes from this past year. And that's going to be it. We're going to try and keep episodes going on out for from here on out, I mean, around an hour, because we realized we kind of had one that could have gone like 2.5 hours, honestly, if we were really churning through it. But before we get into the nitty gritty, we got a few quick news hits, starting off with some football recruiting news. Anthony, you want to go ahead and take that away?
Yeah, and we've been teasing this episode for like 3 weeks, so I'm gonna keep these really quick on the quick news, so we don't run out of time. But yeah, a few new recruits since the have committed since the last time we talked. So actually, 3 defensive back safety commitments puts TCU up to number 16 overall in the 24/7 rankings. So adding a lot of talent, looking good. So the 3 guys we got from Temple, Texas, Javion Wilcox, 3-star guy. Montana Warren from Henderson, Texas, another 3-star, and then Jordan Lester from Mesquite, not currently ranked, no stars at the moment, but has looked good at the camps and caught the eye of the TCU coaching staff. So 3 guys added to the defensive backfield. Big time additions, I guess, just to keep that overall number growing.
Yeah. That's what you love to see.
Yeah, top 20, being top 20, even at this point. I mean, some of the what you would expect to be the big schools out there aren't there yet. Just they don't have the numbers, the total number of commitments yet. A lot of those big time 5-star, 4-star guys are not yet committing, but it's still positive momentum for the Dykes era. So good to see.
Yeah, especially in the first year. And one thing I noticed too, just I guess this is more over the years, and it has a big part just by being in the Big 12 as well. Not necessarily like an instant impact by Dykes, but like seeing that these 3-star recruits are becoming like kind of the norm for TCU. Like how you mentioned Jordan Lester is unranked, like that was kind of the oddity, but that's what TCU's used to, is those unranked recruits. Developing them, turning them into NFL prospects, like. And I know we're in a different era because that was what Gary Patterson was so famous for. But, I like what I'm seeing, though, the fact that these 3-stars, these 4-stars are kind of more the norm now. I like being up with the big dogs. It's nice, and seeing that number 16, a lot can change. You're right. Like a lot can still change. A lot of the big dogs can still get more involved, but I like that. I like to see that.
I mean, I think like Texas Tech is like number 2 in the country right now, something like that, because they have like 30 guys brought in. It's just they have so many people committed that's where it stands. So yeah, I mean, it's obviously not the final number, and the one thing that, like you said, finding the diamonds in the rough, it will yet to be determined how do these guys are the players that the Dykes era and this coaching staff finding, are they the kind of players who catch their eye at SMU and that they would typically get to go to SMU, or are they going to be Big 12 level players? Obviously, SMU has done just fine against TCU the last few years, but you know what I'm saying? So that's to be determined, and that's kind of the one concern of kind of just amassing people is we talked about it before about, is it going to be the right people? So hopefully they're bringing in the guys that can run their systems well and really perform at a Big 12 level and on a national stage.
Yeah, so far so good. I still have a lot of faith right now just in what we've seen from Dykes and Co. So I have no reason not to trust him and his eye and what he's brought in. So I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. No, nothing really further about that. But In other football news, we got USFL rather than incoming Frogs. We got some former Frogs. Pro Wells from the Philadelphia Stars and Cavante Turpin of the New Jersey Generals are facing off in the semifinals. And this is also coming off this morning. Cavante Turpin was announced as the first USFL MVP since Herschel Walker won the award back in 1985. So pretty good company to be next to. But I don't know. Have you been following the USFL majorly this year?
No, gotta say,
Yeah,
not at all.
same.
I
Same.
see when somebody retweets a Turpin highlight or something like that, I might see that, but yeah, I can't say that I've kept up with it, or I'm not in any USFL fantasy leagues or anything like that. No.
Yeah, when the league like first dropped, I remember I was so excited just because there's going to be football on in the spring. But I ended up maybe watching one quarter, and that was that. Like I would rather probably watch a regular season baseball game rather than kind of a random
Right.
USFL game. But yeah, you're right. Like it was cool to see the occasional highlights of Turpin. Seeing Pro Wells' name mixed in there. So I don't necessarily have a prediction as I'd like to, but I would go ahead. My gut tells me the Generals would win just because I know they're like 9-1, I think, out of a
Yeah,
10-game
they
schedule.
seem to be the best team. They have
Yeah.
the player of the year, so
Yeah.
yeah. And I think there's plenty we could say or don't need to talk about Cavante Turpin and his
Yeah.
time at TCU and right after TCU. But it's good for him that he's gotten this chance and he's taken advantage of this opportunity in professional football to really put himself on display at this level and maybe it leads to getting an opportunity in an NFL camp sometime this summer and see what he can do there.
Yeah, there's been plenty of XFL guys to, get the call. So I wouldn't be too surprised if this offseason, maybe not like Turpin specifically, but just in general, if these USFL guys would get, call up to camp for the NFL, I wouldn't be too surprised. All right, and then we got some quick baseball news as well. Coach Mo got called up. Assistant coach is now the head coach at Ohio State. Big loss for TCU, but honestly, congratulations. He deserved it. It's nice to see him get a head coaching job, but it's a tough loss for the Frogs.
Yeah, there's no doubt it's well deserved and no doubt that it'll be a big shoes to fill by Kirk Saarloos there. I mean, it's he's the hitting coach and you can always see the improvement when guys get on campus from their early years to by the time they're leaving TCU, that just the improvement, you know that they're getting so much better with that coaching. And so Buckeyes get a good one. I think Big Ten baseball is not quite the same as Big 12 baseball, but maybe he can compete with Michigan up there and kind of jump back into the tournament again, where that program has not really been particularly relevant at a national stage in a while.
Yeah, I think it's a good opportunity. You can kind of gives them a chance to bring the program back up or, bring them up to greatness. So I think it's a good opportunity. Like he can really kind of showcase his skills as a coach there. So, all right. And then also grad transfer. We got Sam Stoutenborough from California. Anthony, you put this in there, so I'll go ahead and let you cover that.
Yeah. I mean, mostly just TCU Horned Frogs definitely need some additions to the pitching staff. So good to see that you're getting an experienced arm, and his stats out of the Pac-12 were really solid. I don't know that he comes in and is a weekend starter or Friday starter right away, but any kind of depth to add and whatever TCU may lose through this offseason into the MLB draft, kind of backfill some of that depth. So good to see bringing in some significant talent.
Yeah, depth. I mean, depth can never hurt you, so definitely a good piece to have. And then last but not least in the baseball world, not necessarily TCU related, but how about those Sooners heading to the College World Series final? They just beat A&M 5-1 today. And I got to say, I'm surprised, but also like not really. Oklahoma got hot. Everybody was kind of talking about them as maybe a little sleeper pick. And they were right. They were the sleeper pick. Here they are.
and they haven't slowed down. As soon as,
Exactly.
postseason flipped to the postseason, and they ran through the Big 12 tournament, ran through now at regionals, super regionals, into College World Series final. Yeah, I mean, good for them. I think it's deserved. It's not like they're out there making any kind of. eh, They're not a fan base. I don't think that Frog fans have a huge disdain for, at least on the baseball side.
Yeah, I was
So
gonna say, especially for baseball, yeah, not really, because like again, I always find myself kind of wanting to root for the Big 12, but also like, ew, I'm rooting for Oklahoma right now. Like this is
yeah,
disgusting, But with baseball, I don't know. I haven't really felt that much animosity towards the Sooners. I really have no ill will, I guess.
on the flip side, they eliminated the Aggies, and so that's great.
Yeah,
Um,
that's good. Well, again, I don't know. I'm kind of torn on that one as well because it's like Schlossnagel, like
Not torn. No, not torn. No, it would have been. I don't know that I could have handled it if Schlossnagel goes and wins the
you're
national
right.
championship in his first year at A&M, which included taking TCU out of the way.
Honestly, yeah, you're right. When you put it that
I,
way, yeah,
I don't think I wouldn't have been too happy with that. So, not having to deal with that at all, I'm just glad it's
out of the
not the
way.
Aggies. Yeah, just if he gets one in the future, more power to you. I think this season though, it would have stung a lot.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Probably would have stung just because that could have been us. It could have been us. But I also feel pretty confident that we. This is a whole nother episode we could go into. But if that ninth inning doesn't happen, TCU is still in Omaha right
Right
now.
there. Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. But all right, let's go ahead and get into it before we delay it any longer. The 2021-2022 wrap up. So we're going to start with a big hitter. If you've been following along on the website, got a few blogs up so far. I think soccer and volleyball, and then I have a rifle one being posted tonight. Well, I guess I don't know what the correct terminology would be if this is going up tomorrow morning. So you'll just check out the website. You'll see we got a rifle recap coming up from their season where they were runners up and air rifle national champions. So we're going to start with the big hitter, though. We're going to go football, basketball, baseball, get the big three kind of out of the way before we get into some of the non-revs. So without further ado, football season. Not so great. Could have been worse, I guess, but more so than the on-field stuff was the off-field stuff, I guess, kind of took the crown with this past season with Gary Patterson departing, Sonny Dykes coming in. But I don't know, if you had to describe the football season in one word, how would you describe it?
I mean, disappointing. Not
Yeah,
one word, but end of an era. That's
that's honestly, yeah, you're right. You're
that's
right.
where we are. I mean, the TCU had spent, probably your entire life. Gary Patterson was the
Literally.
the only head coach ever for TCU football. So, uh, end of quite an era. And but the performance on the field, that's what it was warranted. I mean, this is one of the worst defenses in the country last year. And when Gary Patterson, defensive wizard, is your head coach, and he puts out that kind of um, effort, it you know that this is something that could happen. And it started right from the start. I mean, when the Cal Bears came to town, and that's not a very good football team, and very nearly ran TCU off the field.
Yeah.
Uh, it was scary things to come for the season.
Yeah, and going back to that, you're right, because Patterson literally took over as coach like 3 months or 4 months after I was born. So,
Yep.
yeah, literally my whole life, I have known nothing other than Gary Patterson. So you're right, and you're also right about the cow, because opening the season, that was kind of like, hey, we get a Power Five team coming into town, should be a pretty easy win based off Cal's record the past couple seasons. We should be able to handle business. We got the win, but it wasn't pretty. Cal put up what, like 400 something yards through the air. Their quarterback had a ridiculous game. maybe not 400, but they had a great game in the air, and it was a little scary because you're like, yeah, where did this defense go? And I know we lost guys like Wallow and Trevon Merrick, but with Gary Patterson, you never really have to worry about the defense. But that was honestly, if I had to say one thing, our defense was like truly the most inconsistent aspect of the team all year, because the run defense would just give up 60-yard plays randomly. The secondary was battling injuries all the time, and Noah Daniels somewhat off-field issues that were never really disclosed. Like, he was just gone for some games. So like, it was definitely frustrating. Just going off, I guess we're talking about the era. So overall in the era, frustrating to see that defense just not be able to come through. Because even with Patterson, you've seen a defense struggle, but then they find their way. Like, he gets his guys in order, he gets his systems in place, but it just didn't happen.
Yeah, and we don't need to go through the whole schedule, but
yeah,
that followed right after that was the SMU game, and
yeah.
I mean, you lose to SMU again, and look pretty much hapless doing it. I mean, the score maybe wasn't so bad, but I mean, you gave up 42 points to SMU.
It's not pretty, yeah.
You just can't do that, and TCU didn't really seem like they even wanted to be there. Almost, it was like
right.
it was a shutdown, and then it kind of started slinging things around once they were down, and at that point it was gone. And so
that happens a lot with these like frustrating seasons, because there's been a few over like the past decade of being in the Big 12. There's been one here or there, but it seems like a lot of these games we lose. We don't often get blown out, even if it's against a good team. We could go into Norman against a top 10 Oklahoma team. Chances are we'll lose by 1 or 2 possessions. Like we don't often get blown out, and a lot of the losses really seem like it's too little, too late. Like they finally started slinging it, or they finally started calling plays that aren't rinky-dink behind the line of scrimmage screens for 3 yards. So, but then it's like, well, guys, why didn't we do this before there was 6 minutes left on the clock? And I think that is largely in part because of Gary Patterson, though. I think that was kind of just his style. He had a little bit too much faith in I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but traditional coaching tactics, like, not risking it on 4th down and trusting your defense, like letting the time go because you don't need to use a timeout yet. Like,
the punts at like it's like 4th and 3 at like the 40-yard line.
Yes,
the plus 40 or something, and let's punt it through the end zone. Great, good. You got
and
like
it's like
20
we're down
yards
by 3, dude.
So,
stuff like that.
And I think we're specifically talking about the 21 season.
Yes,
and it was not good. So it's going to sound like we've got a lot of negativity around Gary Patterson and around the team, and I think maybe someday we'll do a whole retrospective on the Patterson era or something. But like, that's not what we're doing today. This is just this last season's team that was very obviously a disappointment, and there's no real other way to talk about it.
Yeah, and it's not like, we're knocking Patterson's entire era. Obviously, we appreciate and are thankful for everything that man did for the program. But it's like, we're so used to that gold standard of Patterson that like this year was all the more frustrating because, you talk about the SMU game, they looked kind of like lost puppies. But I think the worst was Kansas State. And I mean, that's right after that was when Patterson, that all went down. And deservedly so, I think, because that game was just brutal. What was the final score? Like, we didn't even score a touchdown that game, I don't think. 31-12.
Yeah, I'm looking at it here. 31-12. That's, yeah.
You can't have that against Kansas State, who was an average team at best. Like they're not spectacular, especially whenever you have teams like OU in the conference.
And it may be a little bit of some of the changing of the guard of the kind of coaches that Patterson was going up against, because like,
you're right. Yeah.
In the old days of, he could figure out Bill Snyder, he could figure out, all the string of SMU coaches, but he never could figure out Sonny Dykes. He never could figure out, Chris Kleiman.
Lincoln Riley.
Lincoln Riley completely baffled. So that's where that new generation of coaches that came in kind of had him fooled, and he couldn't adapt, or wasn't able to adapt in time before it completely fell apart.
Yeah, it just kind of goes back to that kind of little bit of stubbornness, not wanting to change, the traditional coaching ways. And not to bring up the new Big 12, but I think like if he were to stay, it would have really been exposed as well with a guy like Luke Fickell coming in. Fickell's almost like cream of the crop when it comes to the newbies that are bringing new tactics and new systems to college football. So
you say that, but I think the other three, Malzahn and BYU.
You're right. Malzahn is more of a traditionalist.
Yeah. And what's his name? Ken Niamana. I'm sorry, I don't know. The BYU coach and
I'm not gonna try.
Dana Holgorsen, who Patterson had plenty of success against Holgorsen. So
yeah, definitely.
I think he would have. I think he would have been fine against those old school guys. But yeah, Fickell probably would have eaten him alive.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, because Malzahn is definitely still a little. He's honestly a little too old school for UCF. I'm surprised. Like it was an interesting pairing when it happened, but it is what it is. But hey, highlight of the season though. I know we're talking all down right now. Let's talk a little positive. We beat Baylor. We were the reason that Baylor was not in the college football playoff, and that's a win.
Yeah, I think Baylor has had a lot of success as an athletic program, basketball, women's basketball, and football over the last few years, and it's really frustrating. Mm-hmm. But for what can probably be said their best season in program history for football, they lost to the worst team of the Gary Patterson era that got the longtime head coach fired. So in the first game without Gary Patterson.
I was about to say, with Jerry Kill as head coach.
So probably TCU doesn't win that game if Patterson's still the coach. Maybe they're I don't know, but yes, very exciting to get a win over a good Baylor team that ended up being the thing probably that kept them out of the playoff. We're talking down on TCU, but if on your resume includes a loss to a very bad TCU team, you can't make the playoff.
Yeah, exactly. And it would have been nice to at least have made a bowl game, get one more win, go 6-6. But for me too, as a student, because that was my last Baylor game, and I remember I had to decide because I was on the club ultimate frisbee team, and we had like a travel tournament. So it was either I go with the team to the tournament or I go to Baylor TCU. And I'm like, guys, this is my last Baylor game. I'm going. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not playing. So best decision I ever made. That was awesome.
I think that's what swung it. I think your presence in the Carter is what swung the game and guided that fourth quarter pass to Shadrack Banks to
I'll never forget that too. Because I worked that game for Frogs of War. I was up in the press box tweeting it, and afterwards I literally ran down, made a little appearance on the field before I ran up to the press conference, just because I had to experience.
You had to storm the field, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I can't. I was just watching it, just remembering like, well, shoot, they're gonna get a field goal.
Here it goes.
Do it. Here we go. And like, why in the world would he throw that? I don't know. It was the football gods handing it to TCU, saying, "Here you go. This one's yours." So no complaints there. But yeah, I guess we've already really hit kind of the main points with Gary Patterson and everything. Next year, a little bit of a 2022, 2023 look ahead. We've teased it here and there over the past few episodes, just with recruiting news and the Dykes era and everything. But one thing we haven't really talked about is the quarterback situation, which I'm curious to get your take, because it seems like everybody's a little spread out everywhere based on, like, I think our polls that we did a month or so back had like the majority on Duggan, but a solid amount on Chandler Morris and like 8% on Sam Jackson. So interesting to see.
It's a split. It's split out there, and I think from all the reports from camp, they're both getting looks at with the first team. We'll see what fall looks like. If we get to go check out fall camp as well, but through the spring, they're both getting shots. Chandler Morris and Max Duggan. Chandler got that shot in the Baylor game, and it's
It
legendary.
Yeah.
But is that the kind of thing where he can lead a team through a season? I don't know. And Duggan has shown a lot of inconsistencies in a lot of ways, but man, he's looked elite in a lot of plays as well. So it's his if he can clean up some of the accuracy stuff, and maybe just the way this new offense comes in will help him a lot. Getting ball out quicker, not just kind of chuck it up to QJ and hope he comes down with it, which works a lot of times. That works sometimes, but that's not really. Max Duggan can't hit that every time.
That's what I was just about to say. And then the other time it doesn't work, the ball's like 10 yards
it's
to the left. It's
way gone. Yeah. Or sometimes there's somebody running wide open in the end zone. I think it was a West Virginia game. He missed a couple wide open touchdowns, and it's just like you can't have that if you want to compete. So it's going to be a debate probably through the season. Whatever choice is made, whether it's the right choice or not. It'll be fun to see. I mean, I think you've got two strong candidates, but it's one of those you have two or you have none kind of things. Is either of them the elite guy that's going to go get you an opportunity to maybe sneak into the Big 12 championship? I don't know. We'll see. To be determined.
Yeah. So my take is like Duggan for me. He's been a 3-year starter. He has, and it's really hard to pull somebody after 3 years of being a starter. To be the backup. Like to me, Duggan hasn't done anything wrong to like deserve getting pulled. He hasn't been that bad or anything. He's just been he's been a game manager with his flashes, like you said. Like he's had his moments, but for the majority, he's kind of a game manager, does what he needs to do. But then, Morris, he's only proved himself one time, so it's kind of hard to just judge it off one game. But it was a really exciting game and a big game. So would he be able to do that again? I just don't know whether or not you can pull Duggan because of kind of how much he's given you over the past 3 years. But I'm going to go a little bit of a long shot here. And I am one of those people that thinks we need to give Sam Jackson a shot. I kind of want to see what Sam Jackson's about.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we need to know more.
And I know the coaching staff obviously knows more than me. So, like, if they're repping Morris and Duggan, then that's probably the correct thing to do. But there's just that part of me, watching Jackson's highlight reel from high school, he's electric. So he'd be a fun player to watch.
I don't know. It's the kind of thing of like everybody's favorite player is the backup quarterback.
Yeah, I see it.
So it's a lot easier to be, Chase Daniels in the NFL and spend, 15 years as a backup and play like 2 games and make $100 million than it is to go out there and take the hits on the field. So, I'm gonna stick with Max.
If I had to name a starter, I'm naming Max Duggan the starter right now.
Yeah, and if it's give him a shot out there, in our FCS game, get him a full quarter of work. Hopefully, you're up enough that you can really split the reps that way. That would be fantastic.
My ideal scenario for the season is I want Max to start, but I want Max to earn it in game. Like not only earn it, in practice, which obviously he's going to if he's going to start the season, but like if he doesn't play, up to standards for like the first 2-3 games, then I think you have to leave it open, leave like you said, give Chandler Morris or Sam Jackson a quarter against the FCS team because, if in the next 2 games Duggan isn't getting it done, then it's not too bad to bring in those other guys because they kind of got their feet wet a little bit. So But overall, though, yes, Duggan. I think you got to go with Duggan as a starter right now. His moments are huge, though. Like his spectacular moments are spectacular. Like he does things that probably not a lot of people could do, especially with his feet. So
Yeah,
looking
and
forward to it.
I'll just say, I mean, yes, Chandler won that big game, and it was a very emotional, exciting, thrilling performance. But we've seen TCU quarterbacks who have stepped up in that position in the past, and I don't think Bram Kohlhausen in the
Yeah,
Alamo
you're right.
Bowl,
You're right.
Grayson Muhlstein sometimes out there. I don't
Foster
think
Sawyer against
Foster
OU a few
Sawyer.
years ago.
Yeah, so like we've had those guys step in and do stuff like that before, but I don't think at any point where you thinking, oh, this was definitely better than having
That's a great point. Yeah, you're
somebody
right.
else out there. So I don't know. I'm going to stick with Max until fully proven otherwise. Which I'm open to the debate.
Yeah, I'm open to it. Yeah, got to go Max. Yeah, I agree. All right, so I think that's really all we got for, unless there's anything else for 2022, 2023 look ahead. You want to give a record prediction?
Oh man, it's too early for that. We're gonna have to. That'll be a full podcast, several
Okay.
podcasts probably worth of content right there.
Yeah.
I
We'll go
think
through the schedule and
my
everything. Yeah.
quick look ahead is I've already seen that TCU is a 7.5 point favorite over Colorado to open the season.
I like that.
Give me the Frogs, man. We're covering that. That's not enough points. TCU should win that game by 2 touchdowns.
I like that a lot. Yeah. I try to stay away from betting the Frogs because
That's just
sometimes you
that
see
is
those
not that is
lines.
not gambling advice. That
No,
is
I know.
my current opinion in June.
We're just analyzing the
The number.
the number perspective of the game, obviously. Yeah. So alrighty though. Moving on now to basketball. Pretty big season. Obviously, got our first NCAA tournament win since 1987. Things are turning around in Fort Worth. We got hashtag trust the process. Anthony threw in the notes, which is very true. Over the past 5-6 years, with Dixon coming in, been some question marks, been some struggles in the Big 12, but trust the process has worked out. This past year was huge for TCU, put us on the map. A lot of people have us in their AP top 10, like way too early preseason, top 25, top 10 even I've seen. Like we said on last episode, Joe Lenardi has us as a 4 seed in next year's tournament. So the Frogs are on the map now when it comes to basketball.
No doubt about it. And yeah, it's the Dixon era has been a bit of a roller coaster.
Yeah.
A bit, you win the NIT tournament, and that's thrilling. As for TCU fans at the time, that was awesome. That was pretty incredible. TCU hadn't even played in the NIT in years. So, and then it make the tournament and lose, and a lot of years not in the tournament or not even close. And so there was there was a pretty loud beating drum behind Dixon of it. Something needed to happen this season, and there were times during the season where it looked like it wouldn't.
Yeah. You're right.
That's some of those losses. I mean, losing to Tech, getting blown out at home to Texas was really bad. Losing to
Especially
Kansas
after all the
State.
hype. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, kind of getting blown out by Santa Clara in like the 4th game of the season. There's a lot of concern there, and there were a lot of moments where it felt like, all right, well, here's the spot where they start folding. All right, here's the moment where, okay, yeah, the big bad other teams in the Big 12 are going to take over, and then that kind of thing just didn't happen.
Turn around. Yeah.
You know, I think the next game after that terrible Texas blowout was LSU, and that's where it's like, oh man, the upcoming schedule is about to get really gnarly. This could just completely fall apart. We're
Yeah.
going
It
to
was
be
almost like,
off the
here we
bubble,
go.
and it's gone. It's all over.
Yeah.
And they come back and win that LSU game, and at that time LSU was they ended up making the tournament, and they were a really good team. But at the time, they were like in the top 20 and one of the top defensive teams in the country. And
Big out of conference win.
TCU put it on them, and those the announcers couldn't stop talking about the LSU players. I don't know if it was like the SEC Network guys or something, but they just could not stop talking about the NBA prospects of so and so and this and that. And it's just like, all right. There's another team on the court that's winning by 15 points. But that was I think that game really gave some emotion to the team, that it was like, oh yeah, we could go take down these big dogs.
Yeah.
And because some of the early conference games, I think you start with Baylor, and like, okay, well, Baylor's number one in the country, and you could give them a run for their money, and
we played well the first half,
and it looks great, and you're right there, and then it just time runs out
it's
on
just
you,
they're the
kind
number
of.
one team.
Yeah, that's how it's going to go. And so to get that LSU win, and then the back-to-back court stormings, top 10 wins at home
Kansas.
over Texas Tech and Kansas. I mean, it doesn't get much more exciting than that. I mean, the Schallmeyer rocking, packed with people, student section, shout out the student section. I mean, when I was a student way back in forever ago, it was like me and three other guys in the student section, watching the games. It was like, it was a ghost town. There were probably, I don't know, more people in the library. But so it's exciting to see that, and then to take those and go win those games. I mean, had every opportunity to lose those games, but winning them put this team and this program on a trajectory that could bring to heights TCU's never achieved.
Yeah, like it gave him so much confidence too, like just going into those next games with the big dogs. But yeah, about the student section and everything, that was my freshman and sophomore year, honestly, too. Mostly for like, because obviously when we play UT, that's going to fill the house. Like when we play OU, people are going to come, even if it's a lot of Oklahoma fans or even if it's a lot of UT fans. But I would be at the games where we played Alabama State, and yeah, we're going to win by 30. But I'm trying to see what we got. Like I'm trying to see who's the bench players, what's the rotation gonna be like, and then yeah, you're right. This past year, almost every game as a student was like, if you're not there 30 minutes to an hour early, you're gonna have to look for a seat. I remember the UT game, although it was just gravely disappointing. The student section was completely full, and I got there late, and I had to go find a seat elsewhere, and then I got kicked out because somebody had tickets in the seat, and then I ended up standing in the hallway and watching from there. So like, it's been crazy, and a lot of it. Shout out to, because like Barstool TCU did a lot to get the students involved, so that was pretty cool to see the Scully packed almost on a weekly basis. But also with the whole Jamie Dixon concept, I think you're totally right that he was somewhat, I don't want to say all the way in the hot seat coming into this year, but there was a little bit of tensions that something needed to happen, because after we got that NIT win, it's almost like, well, TC basketball hasn't done anything for so long, and then now we got Jamie Dixon, who to us is like a messiah. Like he's a former Horned Frog legend, and now he's coming back to his alma mater. Like we expect big things out of him. He gave us the NIT championship, so now we're almost like, all right, here we go, let's do it. Like our basketball team's good. And then those couple years of losing the first round of the tournament, then not making the tournament, it was almost like, all right, well, is he the guy? And I have had full faith in Jamie Dixon the whole time, and I was very happy to see it kind of come to fruition this year, even with. And the most impressive part was that there was 8 transfer players on the roster. 8, over half the roster was transfer players, their first year in the system, first year playing together. And Dixon had his best year at TCU as a coach, in my opinion. I guess you could say the NIT championship may have been a better year, but I think this year overall, I have to say it was the best.
Well, the team was certainly better this year. I think this team definitely beats that team if you're facing off head to head. Yeah. But yeah, and I think you said it with the transfers. finally Dixon seemed to be able to figure out and navigate the transfer situation for the better for TCU. I think transfers were just killing the Frogs over the last few years. I mean, Kendrick Davis,
Jalen Fisher.
even Jalen Fisher, Caden Archie,
Yeah.
PJ Fuller. It's just, it seemed like every guy who was like, all right, this could be the guy, was then gone.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
Yeah. And it was like, what's
so
going on here? You know, like what's happening behind the
it felt like
scenes?
a little
Yeah,
bit of like, is there a culture thing going on?
exactly.
What is the deal that Dixon can't get the guys that he wants and then get them to stay? So yeah, it was concerning for several years, and then to bring in what were definitely ended up being the right guys this year with PV and Damian Ball coming in, Emmanuel Miller coming in. You
The
know,
role players like Cork and Jacoby Coles played a big role. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, all these guys that meshed as a team, and to bring those kind of all these guys from all over, bringing them together and to play as a team, it was huge. And I think that's what there's been so little consistency for him year to year, even during a single season, that now we see it going into next season where it's basically the entire team back. You lose Francisco Farabello, and that's it,
Hmm.
off of a team that was, a couple seconds away from the Sweet 16. Uh, there's no way to say it other than the expectations are sky high going into next year.
Yeah, it's weird to think that we're kind of expecting a Sweet 16 bid, but I think with the team we have, with the way we've retained the roster, I don't think that's too much to ask, honestly. Like you said, I think the sky's the limit with this group. It's really nice to see though overall just the program really tied together this year. I feel like, and a large portion, if we're talking about culture and everything, obviously we don't know what happens behind the scenes in the locker room, like with Dixon those past few years. But Eddie Lampkin this year played a huge part just in the team culture, building the community with the fans, even like he was the fan favorite for a reason. I mean, he was just hilarious. He gave so much effort on the court. He got so much better from last season. I mean, last season he saw the court maybe a couple minutes, a couple times all season. And this over the offseason lost like 75 pounds, was a starter, one of the best big men in the Big 12. So you got to give credit where credit's due. I think Eddie, although his stats weren't like eye popping, oh my goodness, like they were good stats. And I think emotionally, and he has those intangibles that kind of just help the team get somewhere they haven't been before. So, and then also you can't discredit Mike Miles just playing like a future NBA superstar for the season long.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. Miles is the man, and Eddie Lampkin. I mean, just like maybe the most loved TCU athlete that I
Ever.
could think of. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe Josh Doxson. I don't know.
True.
Like, it's crazy. He's no question a superstar for the fans of the Frogs, and yeah, absolutely put in the work and it paid off. I mean, he has remade his game, remade his body, and remade the TCU basketball program.
Yeah, dude, he hustles too. Like for his size too, he'll be scrapping for the loose balls and everything. Like, a lot of times it can get confused. Like some players, have I don't know, disrespectful tendencies. Like if they dunk on somebody, they'll be like tap their head or something. No, like Eddie just hypes himself up. Like no matter what, he's never talking to anybody. If somebody talks mess to him, he might say something and just walk away. He's never really gotten any issues, but he'll dunk on somebody and be like, like so he's just that kind of guy. Like it's just hard not to love him. But overall for basketball, retaining the big three with Miles, Baugh, and O'Bannon in the backcourt is going to be big, mostly for experience sake, because O'Bannon, very seasoned veteran at this point, Miles coming into his third year. I'm just very thankful we have Mike Miles for another season. I was nervous we would get him for 1 year after as well as he played his freshman year. So to have a season like that and to come back, Miles is just trying to put on for his city, man. He
Gotta
wants to
love it.
win. Wants to win something for Fort Worth.
Unfinished
But
business.
yes,
Let's
sir.
make it happen.
Alrighty though, and now moving on. Last but not least of the big three sports on campus, we got the baseball team, which is probably the most fresh in our minds because of what just transpired earlier this month. But again, another big off field story was kind of took the cake this season with Kirk Sarloos taking over as first year head coach. And of course, we have another off field story with the whole Jim Schlossnagle matchup, which we've talked enough about. But overall, I think we have to call this season a big success because the Frogs were predicted to finish like fourth or fifth in the conference. They won the damn thing. Didn't necessarily do too hot in the tournament, but it's baseball. Stuff happens. So getting that conference title with a first-year head coach, huge, huge. And retaining most of the players, like, come on.
Yeah, it really felt like, okay, TCU is here for the long haul as a baseball program. It's not just about one guy or one player or one, recruiting class or anything like that. It's a sustained success now over multiple periods of time that someday we'll be back in Omaha and maybe lift another big trophy, but for this season to turn out the way it did, I think exceeded even the most optimistic of expectations to come out and win the Big 12 and get to the postseason and it's really tough to lose the way you do in a ninth inning, kind of giving it away in College Station, but it, like you said, it's baseball. Stuff happens, and there's definitely the roots of a very strong future for the program.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you said, kind of how it's not one guy. Like, although, Schlossnagle deserves a ton of credit for what he did for the program. I agree. This definitely proved that, TCU is just a good baseball program. Like, at this stage, we could be considered a blue blood if you want to reach a little bit, maybe, especially over the past 2 decades. I would say we've got to be up there. But yeah, you couldn't have asked for a better season, really. Well, I guess you could have, but you got to take your wins. Like we made it to the postseason. We made it with the conference title. We had some guys have a hell of a season. Braden Taylor, Tommy Sacco, you name it. Marcelo Perez, and now we might lose Krob and Cornelio to the draft. Who knows what's going to happen? But like, just a ton of guys that had great years. So I don't have much to say other than I'm just happy with the way it turned out, especially after the middle of the season where there were a ton of doubts. We dropped a few games we really shouldn't have dropped, like lost that West Virginia series, which was very frustrating. And, I remember even the fans on our Ask the Fans polls, we said, is TCU baseball going to win the conference this year? Over half the people said, not our year. So it's nice to see that bounce back. They didn't give up or quit ever, even after a few frustrating losses. Those series wins, like against Oklahoma State, were just absolutely massive, and against Tech, just huge. So I think you just got to take this as a great season that didn't end in our favor. It's just one of those things.
Yeah, and it turns out losing a series to Oklahoma maybe not as disappointing as
Right?
we probably thought at the time. So
Yeah. Right.
turns
Yeah.
out they were about to go on a insane run.
Crazy run. Yeah. And then 2023 look ahead. We've kind of already talked about it for the most part. But just to summarize, the Frogs, they're returning most of their roster. Like I said, Krob, Cornelio have MLB potential. Who knows? Gray Rogers is unfortunately done with the Frogs, but who knows what happens with the transfer portal? They've already brought in a couple guys, like we mentioned, the Cal pitcher, the Baylor transfer, but probably gonna still need to bring in maybe 1 or 2 more pitchers for next season. So
yeah, the pitching staff is where you probably need the transfer portal to produce something. I mean, yeah, Trey Richardson from Baylor transfer in, middle infielder. He's gonna be huge. He's gonna be a stud for TCU next year. And yeah, so I think that's where that's the biggest hole to fill, especially if all three of those starting pitchers turn pro. Then yeah, you're looking to fill a hole that was already kind of a short depth and maybe a weak spot on the roster already.
Yeah, so hoping, like the Cal transfer that we mentioned earlier, hoping Sam Stottenborough can work out for us in that aspect, but it would be nice to see, at least maybe one or two more guys come in. But in terms of pitching, I trust Sarloos. I mean, Sarloos
Oh,
is
yeah.
the pitching guy. Like, I trust him to figure it out. So just got to give him time. It was only his first year, so. All right, and then I think that's it for baseball. You got any other major points?
No, we hit it.
Yeah, we've been talking about baseball for the last couple weeks anyway. So, all right, on to the rest. We got soccer. Big season for soccer. They made it all the way to the Sweet 16 this year, but rounded out, losing to the number 1 seed Rutgers. It was another great season. It seems like TCU soccer has also kind of fought their way into that blue blood discussion over the past decade because they're one of only, I think, like 16 teams to make the past 5 NCAA tournaments, and they've now made 7 in a row. So Eric Bell knows what he's doing. He came in, took the team over 10 years ago, and they would maybe finish 500, maybe above 500 at best. And now they're expecting conference championships. So Eric Bell has done a hell of a job, even in recruiting in the transfer portal. Like this year, Jenna Weinbrenner, I believe she transferred from Creighton. She was huge from the transfer portal. She was all region, went on to get drafted by the KC Current. And then, you got the freshman, Cameron Lancaster, Ollie Pena, just huge pieces to what the Frogs had going on this year. TCU, though, backtracking a little bit. So they did win the regular season Big 12 title, also won the Big 12 tournament. And I thought we got snubbed a little bit. Were you following with like the whole selection committee and everything? Yeah, because I thought we got snubbed a little bit with a 4 seed
and got thrown into a regional that the way the bracket set up was going to be super difficult for the Frogs with kind of that lower seed than should have been, no doubt about it.
Yeah, because we were, I think, ranked number 2 or number 3 overall going into the selection.
Yeah. And then
we got number 4.
won the Big 12 tournament. So it's not like oh well, they were ranked number 2, but then like kind of they got washed out in their tournament. No, took down Texas in the title game.
Yeah.
You couldn't have done any more to climb higher. And we're not granted that favor from the committees. Like seems to be a common theme in TCU
across all sports. Yeah. So, I mean, it was frustrating, but if anybody had a chance, like TCU had a chance against Rutgers. I wasn't necessarily like, oh, shoot, now we have to play Rutgers because obviously they're a good team. They got the number 1 seed, but TCU is just as good. So, first round was a dominant, I think it was 8-0 win over Prairie View A&M. Just not even a game, honestly. It was just a beatdown. And then round 2 got the Princeton. Yes, got the dub over Princeton with the Messiah Bright hat trick. So that was super clutch to see. And she was just insane all year. I mean, she was the lone All-American for the Frogs this year. Basically was a part of every awards list and accolade you can think of. She was all region. She was all Big 12 first team. She was a Mack Herman Trophy semifinalist, which is basically like the Heisman Trophy for women's soccer. So she was just phenomenal all season. And then that put us in the Sweet 16 against Rutgers where, man, that was a hell of a game. We were down 1-0 for the majority of it. Got an 84th minute goal to tie things up. Super clutch. I was like, here we go. We're doing it. We're clutching it. Game goes to penalty kicks. It takes 3 rounds of sudden death in penalty kicks. And we fall and Rutgers advances. It was a brutal way to lose, but full credit to the team out there. Everybody just played phenomenal. Already mentioned a few, but Lauren Collette, another one who had huge shoes to fill after Emily Alvarado left for the French Ligue 1, like literally one of the biggest leagues in playing for Stade de Reims. And Collette had a hell of a season. She was one of the best goalkeepers in the country, not only the Big 12. So that penalty shootout, she made, I think, 2 saves in it, or 1 save at least. But that's really all you need from your keepers to make 1 save in a PK shootout. It just didn't go their way. So tough way to end another great year for TCU soccer.
Yeah, and I think big credit to, I guess, the ESPN Plus showed a lot of these games so people could watch them. And, credit to you and the Frogs of War folks, tweeting games and covering games. I think the TCU soccer team really got a lot of shine this season, certainly well deserved, and made a lot of fans across the TCU fan base. So excited to see what they have coming next year. And over the last few years, the university's really put a lot of attention on the team as well. Kind of redoing that stadium. It's a beautiful stadium out there. And so, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of excitement for that soccer team, and I think Messiah Bright's back next season, right? So,
Yes, yeah.
So I mean, look out. She's a legit superstar. So
I will never forget that she's coming back, because I was writing like a feature profile on her for one of my classes, and I was interviewing her, and I was like, Messiah, like, finishing up your senior year, like, what's one thing, you're going to remember most about and she was like, well, I'm coming back next year. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Breaking news, scoop. Sources say.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay, sweet, like, great. So yeah, she's back for another year. Chaylin Hubbard, I believe, is also coming back. So a couple of the seniors are coming back as grad students. So that's good to see. And honestly, not really losing any like major pieces. I think there's 1 or 2. I'm blanking off the top of my head, but go check out
one of the Graces, I think.
Grace Collins transferred. Yes.
Yeah. There were like 4 Graces, and yeah, Grace Collins she's a really good player.
Yeah, she was a stud. So she transferred. I forget where to, but yeah. So she's one of the 2 Frogs that we're losing. But again, after bringing in like 6 freshmen last offseason, Eric Bell is bringing in 6 or 8 more. So it's going to be interesting to see who kind of breaks into that starting lineup, because last year you saw like Cameron Lancaster and Ollie Pena kind of started as, fresh legs, energy off the bench after like 30, 40 minutes. But Cameron Lancaster quickly found her way into the starting lineup and was just dominant after that. So, all right. And then moving on. Also, yeah, go check out on Frogs War. Got a full recap, a little bit more in detail about all the players, all the accolades and everything. But anyway, next up we got TCU Rifle, who just won. I guess not just. It was a little bit while back, but they are now defending national champions in the air rifle competition and finished as runners-up for the 2nd straight year in the overall team championship. But hey, a national title is a national title, and they got another one. The rifle team has just been absolutely nuts. Kristen Hemphill, Stephanie Grunzo, probably the MVPs of the team. Just looking, at the stat sheets, they shoot at a ridiculous rate. They're just so consistent. All of their scores rank amongst the top 20 in the country. They're shooting at least an 1180 every competition. They played really well in nationals at the national championships. They both shot 2 of the top 10 aggregate scores. So I think in the championship, they finished 3rd in small bore, 1st in air rifle, and 2nd overall. So not too shabby for the rifle team.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about a blue blood. I mean, this is we are Rifle U. This is probably the best program on campus. So.
Yeah, like you see tweets about a rifle school. It's not a joke, man. We are a rifle school. Yeah. We're good.
Nobody is saying that as a joke. That is legit. And yeah, it's always fun to see like, oh, you've got Air Force and Army and and TCU are so it's like, oh, these are the women's rifle team, and it's a co-ed sport, right? I mean, I think it's an actual co-ed sport, but the TCU team is all women. So it's
There are
they're
several. I think there's
really
like
impressive.
5. There may be more than 5, but I know there's like 5 or so that are like 100% all women. But like West Virginia, for example, West Virginia is also, really good at rifle. They're usually a top 10, top 5 team. They're co-ed, and TCU beats them on a regular basis. So
Yeah, they send their mascot out there as one of the contenders.
exactly, yeah, yeah, exactly, dude. But yeah, so head coach Karen Munoz has just been an absolute force for the rifle team. She's had nothing but success in her time in Fort Worth and has also produced 13 Olympians. This rifle team has. So just absolute domination. Wouldn't be surprised if next year that runner up turns into overall team champions because they've already got 3 of them. So why not add another one? And the next up, we got beach volleyball on the list. Who, man, it just seems like all these teams had great seasons. Beach volleyball ended their year in the Elite Eight, were top 5 for the majority of the season. They beat a lot of really good teams, and it seemed like they had a really good shot at the national title. But kind of just one of those things didn't go their way on that day. So
Yeah, once you get into the tournament, kind of anything can happen. But they, earn the number 2 overall seed in the NCAA championship, and won their first match and got into the double elimination round and didn't make it out. But incredibly impressive season from them. I mean, pretty dominant all the way through. I think they lost like 3 games all season, and dominated their conference. Played all of the top teams across the country and really competed at the highest level. Um, all Americans, the entire conference awards list was basically entirely TCU players and coaches, and so again, another program at TCU just competing at the highest level and taking down the competition and just coming up short when it got to the postseason.
yeah, and it's also kind of cool to see. Like, obviously, I don't have any vast knowledge on beach volleyball. Not going to be able to provide any super deep analytical anecdotes, but it's cool because I've had a few friends from out of town. They'll come on campus and they'll be like, "Why do you guys have a beach volleyball course?" I'm like, "Because we had a team." They're like, in Texas, you have a beach volleyball team? I'm like, yeah, we're really freaking good at it too. Like, so kind of cool that a sport that's meant to be played by the beach can be dominated in
Landlocked Fort Worth.
in landlocked Fort Worth. Yeah, it's just, I don't know, just shows that TCU can just be good at everything. I guess we're just like that. We're just like that. But all right, next up, another Elite Eight appearance in another sport. Men's tennis had a hell of a year. Indoor national champions. They had a hell of a run as well in the NCAA outdoor tournament. Were one of the top 5 teams for the majority, if not all of the year. Ended up falling to Kentucky in the Elite Eight. And it's tough, again, because I feel like we've said this with a few sports, but it's kind of just one of those things, one of those days where stuff happens and they lost. I think they lost 4 sets to 3, right?
Yep. Yeah. It came down to the last right at the very end. So yeah, again, number 1 overall seed in the tournament and pretty much rolled through the tournament and into that Sweet 16. And when things moved to Champaign, Illinois, and off of campus sites, and yeah, I mean, just it's a tough one to get that far into the Elite Eight and fall there, but absolutely huge season for them. I mean, had several of the doubles teams were ranked all season. Famba and Fernley were ranked number 1 going into the doubles tournament. You had like 3 or 4 make the singles tournament. Just a really strong team, top to bottom, and it just goes to show how difficult these championships are to capture. That you can have an elite squad of super talented, high level performers and still run into a team that can take you down. once he hit a tournament.
I know Kentucky reached the final, right, against Florida. Who won
Virginia,
that? Oh,
yeah,
Virginia. Okay, yes,
Virginia,
Virginia. Who
yeah,
won that?
Virginia.
And we beat them. Yep.
Yeah, TCU defeated Virginia twice during the season. I think once in the indoor, once in the outdoor, and yeah. So they ended up as the national champion. It very obviously could have been TCU lifting that trophy at the end, but not
Yeah,
this
I mean,
year.
hey, they got one already. They had to share the wealth. They got the indoor title. Had to let somebody else have the fun. But no, I mean, other than Virginia too, they were like just going through the list. Beat number 1 Florida at the beginning of the season. They beat number 15 Ole Miss, number 17 Mississippi State, number 13 Texas, number 1 Ohio State, number 3 Tennessee, number 25 UCLA, number 4 Baylor, number 11 Texas again. Like they were beating good teams all year. So any given, I think if they play that tournament 100 times, TCU lifts the trophy, at least a solid percentage of those times. So one of those things. But all right, and then last but certainly not least, we have men's track, and really the highlight there is Dumapaya getting the gold in the triple jump, and also just kind of stacking his already awesome career as a Horned Frog. So I can't lie, don't have anything major on track to dive
Yeah,
into.
and we talked about Mapai last week.
Yeah.
I mean he's a
He's a
legend.
legend.
He'll be
Yeah.
in the Hall of Fame. He's that's an all time great Horned Frog. So finishing off his career with the gold in the NCAA championships is it's just a great icing on top.
Yeah. And also, I believe in the Big 12 meet, the Frogs finished with 3 gold medals and 3 bronze medals, I believe it was. So we have a piece about that up on the site as well. Alrighty. And just overall, I guess, because we've kind of, I don't think we're missing any sports, are we?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't talk about indoor women's volleyball, which we did just have
The
the
recap
write up.
go up. Yeah.
The recap is out on the website there. So disappointing season that saw longtime head coach let go. So yeah, not a successful season there. Women's basketball, similarly, not a great season, disappointing. I think had some exciting moments, but and the Big 12 is a really tough place to play women's basketball. A lot of elite teams in the Big 12, but TCU women's basketball didn't have a great season, so we didn't talk about them.
I mean, they've had their ups over the past few years, but yeah, this year was definitely not
It
one
was
of
a
them.
down. It was a down year. I think that's the big ones. I'm sure we're missing something. I'm sure somebody will hit us in the comments and yell at us for not talking enough about something or other.
Club hockey or something,
Yeah, yeah.
All right. I mean, hey, club hockey.
Your
Shout out.
your ultimate frisbee team. We need to hear about your.
Oh yeah.
We didn't
Hey,
get a full recap of.
Hey, we did make the regionals tournament for the first time in the last decade.
There you go. See this.
And then we got creamed. And then we got creamed there. But alrighty, so just now that we've kind of gone through majority, hopefully all of the sports. Looking back, what would you say kind of like some of your favorite moments from this athletic season as a whole were?
Yeah, the number one most memorable moment that we'll probably look back in years from this season and say, remember this happening, is definitely the Shadrack Banks interception against Baylor. To beat Baylor in the first game without Gary Patterson and take down that big rivalry game, and obviously a very good Baylor team. So and I'm glad we talk about most of all of the other sports, but football rules the day, and that's going to be the thing that for the most part Frog fans are going to look back at this calendar season. And I think that'll be as a moment, as an individual, that moment as that happened, people are going to remember where they were when they heard it or heard about it or in the stadium saw it happen. So That would
I
be
can
my pick.
picture it so vividly, like just even right now. Yeah.
Oh, and the Brian Estridge call on the radio call is it's perfect. I need to go find it and like retweet it somewhere because it's perfect. And you got like a Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego Bible joke in there about like rising from the fire. It was great. It was like they had the whole script planned out. It was but yeah, it's just a perfect, exciting football moment.
I think that definitely is probably takes the crown. If I had to say my favorite probably overall was just beating Kansas in general in basketball at home. And like, we had the Barstool Storm Chasers, which for those that are unfamiliar, it's literally like a podcast and show, or not even a podcast, like a social media where they just literally go around college basketball arenas where they see upset potential. Like they're just chasing a storm, like a court storming. They chose TCU. It worked out. They got the dub. And so I just remember rushing the court. I was literally just like in the circle with like Eddie and Mike Miles. And then the Barstool guys are just like dancing and everybody's like, hey, hey. So that was just a ton of fun. Definitely one of my favorite memories overall, just watching TCU athletics as a student, but from this year as well. And then probably just sticking on basketball. Another one just had to be winning the tournament game, like just getting that win, being like, like we did it, like, wow, we really did it. So that was really cool as well.
Yeah. And the two tournament games, being able to have one where it's like a clean, dominant blowout victory, and then having one that's like an all-time great, exciting game, probably one of the best games of the whole tournament.
I'd say so,
unfortunately losing the game, but still to be able to have that experience in the tournament is
those bogus refs, man.
Oh man.
But yes, no, I see what you're saying. It was sweet. And then a couple other, maybe we got soccer Big 12 title game. That was pretty sweet. Getting that game winner against UT, almost like poetic justice after they were one of the two teams in conference that TCU couldn't best in the regular season. So nice to avenge that there. And also Garrett Wright in Oklahoma State.
Yeah, that was the other one I threw on there as just like winning that series in Stillwater against, that they were like number 4 in the country at that time. And Garrett Wright 2 days in a row with strikeouts to close out the game. And basically that's what ended up giving TCU the Big 12 title for the regular season, to be able to win those 2 games. So hugely important. Probably nobody's going to look back and be like, oh, remember that time. I think probably it's going to be, remember that time we gave up the lead in the 9th inning to Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but
hey, we still got the hardware though.
But yeah, I mean, being able to get those big wins and get the title for the season is good.
Yeah. And I got an honorable mention. It's not necessarily super serious, but Sonny Dykes' helicopter intro into Amon G. Carter had to be one of the best moments, just because it was kind of like, oh, this is really how we're doing it. Like, okay, like I remember
it's going to be a show from now. We're no longer waiting in the shadows. We're putting on a show now.
Yep. Yeah, I remember being in the stadium. We're like, man, like this is supposed to start like 20 minutes ago, and then all of a sudden a helicopter, and we're like, surely not. Like, no, that can't be. And then it's getting closer. We're like, no way. So it was pretty cool. But yeah. And also, you have any, I guess not favorite moments, but like whoa moments that you're kind of like, oh, hey.
Yeah. I mean, I just like this because this is as memorable. It's not important or didn't lead to anything important, but like, man, remember that time that TCU baseball beat Kansas 30-3 in Lawrence, and Porter Brown hit 2 home runs with 10 RBIs hitting at the 9-hole spot? Like that's kind of an all-time, like, I don't know, trivia. Yeah. Which sport did TCU
like,
beat Kansas 30-3?
Yeah, football or baseball. No, I remember seeing that. That was like on national news and everything. Like everybody was talking about like, yo, chill out, TCU, like calm down. But it was cool.
Yeah, and then my other one is just probably the highlight of the year, the number one like Sports Center top 10 highlight is Quentin Johnston just mossing the Oklahoma secondary in the end zone, catching that touchdown pass and just like stomping on their grave and like pushing them down too small, you're too short. And oh man, just that he didn't get thrown a flag for that. I guess I don't know if like the referees were standing right there, like,
They
but he
were,
was
yeah.
like, just shows the talent that he has, and he'll, this will probably be the last season that we get to see Quentin Johnston in college football. So certainly
Probably.
enjoy it because he very well could be a first round draft pick come next spring.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too surprised either. But honestly, yeah, I can't really think of any others just off the top of my head. I think those are mostly the baseball beating Kansas 30-3. It was just like, seriously? Like, really? Yeah. Alrighty, though. And then it's up to you. I'll leave this up to you. Do we want to go through the superlatives?
Yeah, I know. We're already at over an hour here. I think again we can cut it here. We can allow people to enjoy the rest of their day. I'm sure they're ready to hop off the treadmill or whatever it is they're doing listening to this. So we can come back to this. We can come back to this next week.
We did get the big chunk that we've been kind of.
We hit the recap. We got the recap in. We're going to continue to hit all you guys with the recaps on the website. The deep dives through each of the sports. So keep a lookout for that. And I think we'll hit superlatives and maybe we'll come up with some fun things to add to this superlative list for next week.
Yeah, no, I bet. Yeah, because right now we have mostly kind of more serious stuff like most improved MVP. So we'll probably add some funky stuff like, I don't know, funniest quote of the year or like stuff like that, just from all across TCU athletics. So I guess, hey, maybe these teasers aren't so much of a bad thing. It keeps them coming back. Like, hey guys, stay on your toes because next week we'll be talking about this.
Someday we've got to deliver, though.
Right. Yeah. Well, so next week, that is the plan. We're going through starting with our superlatives, and then whatever other TCU news pops up in the rumor mill, we'll be talking about that. But yeah, like Anthony said, go check out the site. We got our recaps rolling out as well as just our normal news every so often. So yeah, that's all we got for this week. Appreciate everybody for listening, and we will see you guys next week.
Go Frogs.
Yes, sir.